record button.
Yeah, see, it's on the slide.
Well, do it as long as you can, and if it doesn't work out, we'll just turn it off and just use what we have. Alright, so...
Okay.
Boy! Alright, there we go. Now we can actually see me. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and get started. Hello, this is Madcap, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today is a little bit of an impromptu show with my good friend Jack. It's Jack, right?
Hello.
And we had a conversation yesterday, and actually I think it was the day before. Oh no, yeah, it was yesterday. And we decided, hey, you know, this would be a great discussion to have on video. So, here we are. So, I guess, do you want to start off with, you know, basically the topic of the conversation and your response to it?
Well, we just... I can't even remember what the topic started off, being to begin with. We covered so much and went so many different directions with it. Wasn't it about the Antifa protesters, or
well, I think that was,
about the?
I think that was part of it. I think the overall nature of the conversation we had was whether or not to hold all people accountable to their actions, and whether or not some actions deemed more of our attention or not. Because obviously Antifa is a very major deal right now, and I don't even fully understand what Antifa is. I know it's a protest group on the left, but then there was also the discussion of whether or not we should be holding the same scrutiny to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Which go ahead.
Yeah, I remember now. It was I'd taken the position that yes, there are extremists on the right, and yes, they should be called out. But I was looking at it as the position of who is more of a threat right now. Those handful of people on the right who no one pays attention to. They're not in any position of power. They have no influence. Or these people on the left who are college professors, who are in the government, who are advocating racist views, sexist views, just discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, all of that. And my position is basically let's go after who is the bigger threat, the more of a threat. And right now, those racists or whatever on the right are not really a threat.
And, I've given some serious thought to that, because the point that I brought up was the idea of book burning, that someone didn't like J.K. Rowling's political views, that she hated Trump. She compared Trump to Voldemort. And someone posted, I guess, on Twitter or Facebook to J.K. Rowling, like, well, I'm burning all of your books. I'm going to put them all in a fire. And I was deeply offended by that. Now, I'm a writer, so obviously I'm going to be a little bit more sensitive to that than others, but, I mean, book burning is such a huge crime to me, because we've worked so hard in our society to have knowledge. And book burning is just kind of like the first step towards anarchy to me. But I've thought about this conversation, and I guess my point that I have ultimately is, once upon a time, this left that we have now used to be a minor thing back in the 90s, or even back in the 80s. And it kind of had the same viewpoint as, well, they're not really a threat. They're not really, in a position of power. Let's focus on the things that are the immediate concern, because these people are not going to be anything, and then they grew to be in power. Now, it's illogical to say that we should ignore the major threat right now, and there I agree with you. But we should still hold people accountable for the movements they're in, because while it may not be an issue now, it could grow into one. The left wasn't always like this crazy at least.
I would disagree with you on that one point that the left wasn't always like this. I think what we're seeing now is what the left truly is when they simply don't want to hide and be nice. It's kind of well, just take what happened at the Democratic National Convention as an example. Now, just for the sake of being upfront and completely honest, as of right now, I'm a registered Democrat. I will not be as soon as I can get around to getting that changed. I'm not going to register as a Republican, but I will no longer be a Democrat because of what was done to Bernie Sanders. Now, I would have never voted for Bernie Sanders. I don't like the guy's ideas, but I'm a registered Democrat, but I won't be for very much longer. What happened was the DNC decided they wanted Hillary Clinton in, and they basically stood up in front of everybody and said, we don't care how you voted in the primary, we're putting in Hillary Clinton, and you can like it or not, we don't care. And it was this just upfront of we're corrupt, and we really don't care who likes it or who doesn't. That really showed you who they really are. And I think the left has always been like this. Not every person, maybe not even a majority of them, but I think this is always where it has been headed, and now they just don't care about hiding their true objectives anymore. The social justice warrior, some would call it cultural Marxism, that sort of thing is where it's always been headed. They're just not trying to hide it anymore. But your larger point of, yeah, these people weren't in power and they weren't a threat. Okay, I can go along with that, with what you're saying there of we should ignore these people on the right, because they will, if we do, we did this once before with people on the left, and if we do it again, the same thing's going to happen. I agree with you on that. My point is that the people on the left, Antifa and all of these other groups, they are actually committing acts of violence. People are getting seriously hurt, having to go to the hospital because of these people. And the book burning, while the protests at Berkeley were censorship, that was the basic reason for them being there, is to censor Milo. And book burning at its core is censorship. And so in that respect, they're both the same. It's simply the fact of the people on the left are engaging in violence, destruction of private property, and I guess public property, if you want to consider the damage to UC Berkeley campus, since it is state funded. I guess you could say that's public property. Really what it all boils down to is that each individual person has got to decide for themselves which fight they want to fight. And you, Mad Cat, I would not go up to you and say, hey, you don't need to be worried about these people on the right. You need to be focusing on the left, and if you don't, there's something wrong with you. You're a bad person. I would never say that to you. And I would expect that people who see me pointing out like Antifa and all these, all this is going on the left, I would expect that you would not say to me, hey, why aren't you calling out the people on the right too? Or, what are you, a hypocrite? We all pick our battles that we want to fight. And I think that both of us would equally respect each other for doing that, even though we may not pick the same battles to fight.
So there's a lot that you said that, I want to try to address all of it.
Yeah.
First off, no, I'm not going to demand which battles you fight, because my personal philosophy is that one person cannot fight all of the battles, and the best that we can do is several people fight several different battles. And in the big picture-esque way of looking at it, everything is being addressed. You want to focus on the left, and I want to, like... I feel my position is to attack the little issues that are coming up, because I can't attack the big issues. I could, but then I would be lost in a sea of voices. So I try to, reach out for the little guy that may not get the attention they deserve, or the issue that could one day grow into something more. And that's where my battle is. What you're saying about Bernie Sanders and the DNC and all of that, I agree with you, actually, 100%. That Bernie Sanders should have won. He probably got voted and the DNC cheated. And Bernie Sanders could have quite possibly beaten Donald Trump. But
I think he would have had a better opportunity. Yeah, I think he would have had a better chance than Hillary. But yeah, go ahead.
But then I would have voted for Carly Fiorina had she been running against Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. She was actually my number one choice. But I still voted for Donald Trump because that was one of the two candidates available. Now, as far as what you said before that about this is the true DNC, this is the true Democratic Party, this is the true progressive left, I'm going to slightly disagree with you on that. Because I think the right will be guilty of this too, sooner or later. That this is kind of like the logical conclusion to the corruption that we've seen within politics. This is when it's good, and I guess it becomes, has it ever been good? We got two sides to a coin. That's how our government functions, is that we got multiple sides trying to fight as hard as they can, and somewhere in the middle is a resolution. But we've been seeing this corruption building for a long time because we've kept looking at the issue as they're not a threat. We don't need to worry about them. Let them tire themselves out, and it never happened. And so they were allowed to become corrupt and become like this. But I fear that this could also happen to the right. And during the Bush administration, there was a lot of this. Okay, let me rephrase that. There was a lot of corruption on the right when President Bush was in office. And everything...
which Bush?
The second one.
Second, okay.
The two-term Bush. I like the sound of that. It sounds naughty. But whichever office is in power, it seems that the opposite side seems to be moody.
Yeah.
But this time, the left has gone full retarded. And I agree with you that we got to deal with Antifa now. And I was watching UC Berkeley, the police standing back and letting it all happen, not doing anything at all. That was a disgrace. Now, it's a tough call. I will give the police that, because if they start going in there shooting, it could easily turn into a bloodbath where people are attacking each other, or maybe they brought their own guns and they start shooting at the police. It's a tough call, but I think the point when they're picking up the barricades and throwing them into the building, that's the time to get the tear gas out.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Were you finished?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I believe they did use tear gas, but as far as supposedly there was like 100 SWAT team guys on the bottom floor of that building, and they never come out of the building because they were supposedly, now I cannot prove this, but supposedly they were ordered to stand down and just let the protesters do whatever the hell they wanted. I'm with you. They should have done something But I also don't think we should lay the full blame of that on the police. I think there were some people above them pulling some strings, saying no, let them go. And to me, what the point where they should have intervened, they should have went out there and call me advocating for police brutality or whatever you want. They should have come out with nightsticks and started busting some skulls when those Antifa people started beating the crap out of people. You know, there's a one guy who was beaten unconscious laying in the middle of the street. There was this blonde woman who was was trying to get back over the barricade, and they were beating the crap out of her. And she was begging for help, and they were just beating her and stuff. When that stuff started happening, it's like, okay, playtime's over. You're supposed to get serious. But yeah, I see what you're saying. One thing, I guess I should have defined my terms before we started this. But I see a difference between the Republican Party and the right, and a difference between the Democratic Party and the left. I also see a difference between liberals and leftists. Liberals think Dave Rubin as an example. Your classical liberal. And leftists as these social justice warriors, Antifa, and all of that. That's leftists. Now, all right, you were saying that you think that the right will be guilty of something similar in the future. Well, they already have been. It happens on both sides. It's just that the Republican Party, the only reason that they are not as corrupt as the Democratic Party is because they can't be, because they don't have super delegates. The Democratic Party is the only one that has super delegates, and that allows them to rig a primary election a lot easier than the Republican Party. Now, if the Republican Party had super delegates, I believe the same thing. Well, I don't believe Donald Trump would have ever got to be the Republican candidate. I don't think that the Republican National Convention or whatever national meeting, whatever they call themselves, I don't believe they're any better than the Democrats and the powers that be within the party. I just believe their hands are a little more tied because they don't have super delegates. So, and as far as the Republican or the right, being guilty of the same things that the left is right now, yes and no. They back during the 70s and the 80s and into the probably to the early 90s, they were as authoritarian about freedom of speech and freedom of expression as the left is now. You play a lot of video games. I'm sure you can talk to some older gamers who will tell you, yeah, man, back in the 90s, they were really coming after games and gamers hard.
Oh, I remember those times. I was a kid during those times, so.
Yeah. Yeah, see, yeah.
I'm older than you, actually.
Do what?
I'm older than you, actually.
You are?
Yeah, I think I'm a year older than you. I'm 36.
Oh, are you? Oh, no, we're the same age.
Oh, okay.
Then, okay. All right, well, I was thinking you were younger than me.
Cool.
I guess it just shows how old I look. But yeah, I don't. My big thing is right now is, like you were saying, Antifa has to be dealt with now. But we have, as a society, has changed. We have changed, and the same things that we saw happen on the right in previous cycle, when they were the ones in power, they were the authoritarians. It won't go down the same way this time. Because quite frankly, whenever someone pops up and says something blatantly racist, I'm not talking about making a joke or saying something that the left would call racist. I'm talking about actual racists, real racists, real racism. People laugh at them. People mock at them. Or mock them. It's, somebody said, I've seen guys on the internet say, well, you do know that black people are genetically flawed, so they're not going to be as smart as white people. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Look at Thomas Sowell. Look at this guy. Look at that. What are you talking? Get the hell out of here. You're an idiot. And it's just, we don't see the outrage because people have moved past the point of being outraged. It's like, that don't even justify being outraged. That just justifies being dismissed, laughed at, mocked, and just, shut the hell up. Get out of here. Go play with some Play-Doh in the corner or something. Let the adults talk. We've become a society that doesn't fight this stuff as much with outrage as with dismissal. And it's just like when we see a video of social justice warriors. You've been in the chat room groups here on Skype. We pass them around and laugh at them and make fun of them. And honestly think that may be our best weapon against these the social justice warrior left or part of the leftist group, is because they cannot stand to be dismissed. They're outraged and they want you to pay attention to them and listen to them, and if you just dismiss them, they don't know what to do. They can't handle that.
Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts in my head that I need to go ahead and
Go ahead.
Well, first off, with the riot that we saw at UC Berkeley, this is just something that I've been saying for a while now, is that this has just been an escalation on the left side, the radical left, the progressive left. Because, it's, prior to that, we saw the Women's March, and we saw some pretty horrific things there. Like, one girl set another girl's hair on fire. And thankfully it was put out quickly, but that could have easily spread. Hair is rather flammable. Then we've been seeing things with Black Lives Matter, and that has been escalating. It was like interrupting a Bernie speech, which I thought was entirely disrespectful. That was a man who marched with Martin Luther King. You don't call that man racist. I mean, I don't really like Bernie Sanders, but I respect him. But then it escalated to staying in the streets. It escalated to actually causing people damage. But I think part of the problem with what happened at UC Berkeley, with the police not doing anything, is probably what happened in the UK with the Muslim rape gangs, that the police didn't want to do anything about it because they were afraid of being labeled racist. And in this situation, the police at UC Berkeley were afraid of the same thing, that if they interfered, then they would be under the microscope of being, well, why are you defending this person? Why are you racist? Why do you hate women? I mean, it was much the same thing when those 4 black thugs kidnapped a mentally handicapped white guy and started beating him up, tortured him, saying racial slurs to him, and the news media did not want to say this was a hate crime. They didn't even want to address the fact that they were being racist. And the police did not want to say that it was a hate crime. Not because they didn't think it was, but because they were afraid of media backlash, afraid of all of these groups. And it's just this mentality that we have, that we're so afraid to do anything. And it's kind of takes us back to McCarthyism. This idea that if you somehow do something bad, you're a communist. It doesn't even matter if you actually are or not. If you're accused of it, it can destroy your life. And now we've come to this point that we're repeating this again. But, you were talking about the differences between now and then. That back then, Republicans were very authoritarian, and now it seems to be the left who's the authoritarian. So it's going back and forth. And I was thinking, the things that got Nixon impeached, or rather he stepped down before he could get impeached, are the same things that Hillary basically did, and no one cares.
Yeah. Well, it's just like with the whole thing about the quote-unquote Muslim ban that Donald Trump has signed with an executive order. First off, it wasn't a Muslim ban. It was a ban from people from certain countries. And the left is going literally apeshit about this. Not just your average college social justice warrior, but celebrities and everyone is just losing their minds over this. Well, guess what? Obama is the one who actually signed that the first time. All Trump did is erase Obama's name and sign his name on it. Obama did this first. Obama's the one that set up this list of countries where we should limit or ban immigration from for a while. And when Obama did it, he did it for 6 months. Donald Trump is only doing it for 3 months. But they don't. It's to the point here. It's okay when Obama did it, but it's not okay when Trump does it.
Well, it's even worse than that because I've heard people talk about this, and it's like, oh, but when Obama did it, it was for something completely different. And it's like, no, it's not. It's for the exact same thing. And this isn't actually a ban. This is just a referendum of saying, like, okay, we're going to review the system. We're going to look at some green cards, make sure people, are here legally or stuff like that. This isn't saying that no one can come. It's just like we're putting a stop on the system, we're going to review it, see if there's a way to improve it, and go with that. And
right.
I love what Steven Crowder said, and I watch him on occasion. I don't agree with everything he says, but he made a very good point here. This is like the difference between being suspended from school and being expelled from school. Being suspended means you can return once your suspension is over. And that's what this is a suspension. This isn't an expulsion. I know I'm mispronouncing that word, but we're not expelling Muslims from this country. We're only suspending new ones from getting in. For 3 months.
It's not just Muslims. It's anybody from these countries. And, people on the left are pointing out, well, you aren't even banning the people from the worst Muslim countries. You're just picking out these countries. And it's like, okay, that should be evidence to you that this isn't actually a Muslim ban. So, what has changed, or one of the things that has changed, is now people have this. They have YouTube. They have websites they can go to and read that bypass the mainstream media. And so the control that the mainstream media had on the narrative is gone. It is gone completely. They have completely lost control of the narrative. So these people who we see protesting have still got their heads stuck up BuzzFeed's butt, and seeing other left-leaning groups that lie, that bold-faced, flat-out lie, and are believing what they're told, that Donald Trump really is a Nazi. He really is Hitler. He really, like what Whoopi Goldberg said the other day, he's no different than the Taliban. And they're believing this stuff without going and checking for themselves.
It's so funny to me that they will, especially at the UC Berkeley riots, like, oh yeah, Trump is a Nazi and we're going to force you to believe what we want. You're no different than the brown shirts who did the exact same thing. And guess what? The brown shirts worked for Hitler. They worked for the Nazi party. You are the brown shirts. You are literally Nazis accusing those who disagree with you, those who support capitalism, those who support freedom of speech, to be Nazis.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw it, but I posted a video of, Gavin McInnes had a lecture or a talk at a university last night in New York, and Antifa showed up there. And the New York Police Department was not going to put up with a bunch of bullshit. They arrested several of them. But you had a college professor out there yelling and screaming at the cops, F you, F you, do you should be in there. These are Nazis. You should be in there beating up these people. Why are you protecting them? F you, F you. And whoa, wait a minute. You are telling the state, the government, to go beat someone up because you don't like what they're saying. Yeah. You're telling the government to beat someone up who all they're doing is talking. What the hell?
And you know what? This is going to be controversial of me to say, but I think you can agree with the merit of what I'm about to say. I don't care if it was Adolf Hitler himself who was speaking at an engagement and was invited to speak. I don't want to hear what he has to say. And hell, I would think if Hitler was still alive, which would be amazing, because he'd probably be like 90 or 100, that he should be arrested for war crimes. But if he was given a platform to speak, I don't think the police should go in there and beat him down. In this country, no matter what your viewpoint is, as long as it's not inciting violence, as long as you're not saying, hey, you go over there and kill that person, and that person goes and does it, everything else is pretty much protected under the freedom of speech. If it's a Nazi who wants to get on a platform and say how they think that the blacks and the Jews are the problem in the world, and, you know, we need a new world order, they have the freedom of speech to say it. They have the freedom of assembly, guaranteed by the First Amendment right.
Yeah.
And we, as people who disagree with them, do not have the right to incite violence. We do not have the right to tell our police or the state to take away their freedom of speech and to go hurt them.
Yep. Well, exactly. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, 100%. You know, yeah, I live down in the South, and every once in a while, the Ku Klux Klan will get a wild hair up their butt to go have a march. Okay? Let them march. Let them get up there and, you know, on the steps of the courthouse and speak their garbage. Because guess what? The best antidote to what they have to say is just let them talk. You know, that's the best thing you can do, is to let them talk. Because if you try to censor them, and if you do censor them, you push them underground. No, we want it out in the open where we can say, see, they're dumbasses. You know, and be able to point to it and say, this is what these people are about. Not that this is what we say they're about. No, this is what they're about because this is what they said. And that is the best thing to do, is to let them talk. And it goes back to the old saying, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to my death for your right to say it. And another point you brought up is not only just freedom of speech, but freedom of assembly. Freedom of assembly. That is just as important as freedom of speech, because one guy standing out in the middle of a field with no one around exercising his freedom of speech is not, you know, that means nothing. That doesn't accomplish anything. That doesn't, protecting that right means nothing. It has to be also, the freedom of speech has to go along with freedom of assembly.
Well, yeah, you're 100% right on that one. And this is why we have the laws that we do. This is why it was so important to have these things. And people are trying to erase all of it. It's like, you can have the freedom of speech so long as you agree with us. Agree with what we say. You have the freedom to say that. But here's the other thing, is that when you try... I mean, look at how more powerful Milo has become since he got banned from Twitter. He's gotten a lot more sympathy for it. He's gotten a lot more popularity from it. If you see the Ku Klux Klan talking on the courthouse steps and you try to get the police to break them up, you're only going to give power to their cause. You know, the Honey Badgers got thrown out of Calgary for giving their opinion. And there was such a big push to get them out, and now they're suing the Calgary Expo, and they will likely win. And it brought more attention to them. A lot of people came forward to help donate to their legal fund. Same thing with Janice Fiamingo. You know, she's getting charged with a human rights violation, which is bullshit. And as bad as it is that all of these people have to go through these horrible things, it's only going to bring more awareness to what they're doing. When you try to stop someone, what's the saying from Game of Thrones that when you cut
out a man,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead. You were on it.
When you cut out a man's tongue, you're saying that you're afraid of what he has to say. Is basically it. You're not silencing him. You're just admitting that you're afraid of what he has to say.
Yep.
And that's all what these people are doing, is demonstrating that they're afraid of what people have to say.
Yeah. And you know, I'll give you a perfect example. My dad, growing up, down here in the South, he can remember when he was a little kid going to the Christmas parade and the Ku Klux Klan marching in the Christmas parade, and no one thought anything about it. No one raised an eyebrow. About, I guess it was 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, the Ku Klux Klan had a rally in that same town, and it was like 20 Klan members versus 200 people protesting against them. And we're talking a small town, okay, very small town. So look at how everything has flipped, and no one was censored, no one was silenced. We didn't ban anything. Okay, you can't lynch someone, obviously. I mean, as far as speech goes, we didn't ban them from speaking. We let them speak, and look what happened. Now they have to have police protection when they go speak somewhere. So it's a lot of things have changed, and the internet has changed things as far as we can now go around the media and we can have conversations like this and watch people have conversations like this. We can, in other words, there's more perspectives, more information being put out there than what we used to get from the mainstream media. So now people are starting to see, if it was up to CNN and MSNBC, no one would have ever known that the Berkeley protest happened, except for CNN, who is now blaming it on right-wingers, saying, well, the right-wing people did this. But now everyone has a cell phone, like what I'm talking to you on right now. And the videos are there on YouTube. You can go see for yourself and say, CNN, you're full of shit. And so we have this ability to just communicate with each other and be able to see it for ourselves, and that is causing people to really wake up and see what's going on and to take notice. The other part of that is that we have gone so far past the point of being racist. Mine and your generation, rightfully so, is looking at the social justice warriors and saying, you know what, you're just as bad as the Ku Klux Klan. You're just as racist. Racism is racism. And when we hear this nonsense, no, black people can't be racist, we're going bullshit. Black people can be racist. And when they say, no, it requires privilege, so only white people can be racist, and you can't be racist against white people, we go, no, racism is racism. So it's not working on us, this social justice warrior rhetoric. On the same token, the racists who want to pop up and show their, pop their head above the parapet now, the legitimate racists against black people, we're also looking at them and calling bullshit. It's because our generation is very anti-racism, no matter who the racism is directed against, and no matter where it's coming from. So I could be wrong, but I do not believe that these handful of right-wing, actual, real racists will ever come back into power, ever.
And I've given that some thought since we started this conversation. I think you have a very valid point. That while the left has grown, and we, back in the 90s, we weren't too concerned about this PC culture. We were more laughing at it. I remember laughing with my friends about, Mortal Kombat being too violent. It encourages violence. And I used to have the jokes like, Mom, I'm going to go out and commit a fatality. I'll be back later, So, I mean...
I'm going to go rip someone's heart out.
So, it was so silly to us, and we didn't take it seriously, and we just thought, okay, you think violent video games are a thing, whatever, we're still going to play them. Even if you try to put an NC-17 rating on it, we're going to still play these games. You're not going to stop it. And we didn't take it seriously, and it became an issue. So, that had been building. But now, it's going to be very difficult for the right to build the same momentum. Because, like you said, we have the internet. We have social media. We have conversations like you and me have in all of the various chat rooms we have, whether it's on Skype or Discord or whatever other thing people use. We have YouTube. We can, I can watch Steven Crowder. I could even watch the Young Turks to get an alternate perspective. A wrong perspective, but an alternate one. There are so many more options that I don't have to focus on the mainstream. So that means that people cannot get away with the stuff that they used to. That when there was pretty much a media blackout, that only people who can tell us is the nightly news. And that's only what they decided to tell us. They can't get away from that anymore. And that's probably the reason why Trump won. Because the news media kept saying, Trump did this, Trump did that. We keep putting Trump on the screen. And surprise, surprise, Trump still won. Because people could get they could find out whether or not what the media is saying is true or not. They could actually find out the answer. It wasn't because they kept putting his picture up, it's because they were blatantly lying about him.
Mm-hmm. And see, how we knew that they were lying is because, before, when either Bill Clinton or Bush Jr., I call him Bush Jr. because he doesn't like it. But anyway, Bill Clinton or Bush Jr., whenever they got up and gave a speech, the mainstream media, it was the only video cameras in the room. So they could show what they wanted you to see and throw the rest of it in the garbage can, and you never saw it. Now, what Trump does is he got up during his campaign, and he's still doing it now. He gets up and gives a speech. He puts the whole thing on YouTube. So when the mainstream media wants to take a little snippet out of context and try to make a big deal out of it, people can go over there and, well, I'm going to go watch the whole thing and see what he actually said. And that is what I believe that more than anything else was, I believe that more than anything else Donald Trump has done to destroy the mainstream media. That was the most important thing he did to destroy the mainstream media, is putting his rallies up on YouTube. That way people could go and see for themselves. And that, I believe that was the number one thing he did to destroy the mainstream media. Now, granted, the mainstream media was going down before Donald Trump come along, but still, I believe that was several nails in their coffin. Now, the right, in my opinion, the whole political system in this country is in a severe state of flux right now. The right isn't what it was 2 years ago, much less 4 years ago. I mean, we had a gay guy stand up at the Republican National Convention and give a speech and got a standing ovation. That probably wouldn't have happened 2 years ago. There's no way in hell that would have happened 4 years ago. But it happened now. So, I honestly think that the right is not going to revert back to 1950s and 60s racism just because a handful of people who are on the right are speaking out and promoting racist views. I could be wrong, but I honestly think if the right is going to go back to a totalitarian, authoritarian way of operating and try to shove stuff down their throat, I believe it'll be something else. It'll be something we're not even thinking about right now. That'll come out of right field, and we'll be like, okay, here we go. They're going to do it too because they've done it before. Then now the left's doing it. It stands to reason that the right will do it again. But I don't think it's going to be the racism. I think it'll be something else.
Well, no, I think you're perfectly right there. I talked about McCarthyism before, about everyone being afraid of being a communist. And now the big thing is everyone's afraid of being homophobic. Everyone's afraid of being Muslimophobic. Or Islamophobic, not Muslimophobic. And that's how it's evolved. And I think you're perfectly right. It's not going to really be... If the right becomes corrupt because Trump is in office and... Let's say 2020, Trump doesn't get elected, the right might retaliate, which I could see happening in all honesty. Whatever their fight is it's not going to be recycling what they did in the 50s and 60s. It's going to be something different. And we're seeing that now that the right, the alt-right, conservatives, they're really... I just kind of lost my train of thought. They
don't worry, I do it too.
Right now they seem on the level, but I know better. They're not. But they're just like... They're going to start trying to push for things that they want, which is understandable, and try to undo the compromises they've had. Like Trump has stated that anything that funds abortion, he's just going to get rid of. If there's a bill that comes along that does it, he's going to do it. And one part I agree with him, and one part I disagree with him. That he's going to try to put justices on the Supreme Court that would try, if they could, do away with Roe v. Wade. Despite it being illegal right now, he would try to do that. And I'm not going to really debate whether or not abortions are really necessary for our country, society, or whether they should be abolished or kept. But it seems like Trump is the kind of person who will go in there and make all the changes he wants, and he's not going to care about the people so much as what he thinks is right, which does concern me, but I think a lot of people are just going to support that because, hey, Trump is their man, and they'll support anything he does, and they won't dare question it. And that's problematic. The people I trust the most are those who say that they voted for Trump and they don't trust him, such as myself. I don't like Trump. I fucking hate Trump. I'll put that out there. But I did vote for him because I did not want Hillary in office, and I truly believe he can bring jobs back to this country, which is what we need more than anything else. I don't care about any other issue right now. If he brings jobs back to America, I'll say that his presidency was a wash. But I'm still going to hold him under a microscope. If he fucks up, I'm going to be there to say he fucked up. I'm not going to immediately support him just because. And that's what happened with Obama, is people just automatically supported Obama, and Obama fucked up. You know, and I truly believe that he could have been a big difference for this country, and he let down on that promise. And the Affordable Health Care Act failed. While it did give me insurance when I couldn't get insurance before because I can't work and I'm disabled, it caused a whole lot of other people to spend more money on their insurance, and they didn't have a lot of money to begin with. And people would still defend him. Why? Because he was a black guy. And that is it.
Yep. Because they didn't want to appear to be racist, I agree with you 100%. We got to keep to hold Trump's feet to the fire when he does screw up, or when he does do something that we don't agree with. The thing about Trump that really it's a different variable in the equation is you hit on it there a little bit when you said he's going to do what he wants to do whether people like it or not. Well, that's a good thing in a way and also a bad thing. I mean, he's our elected official. He needs to be doing what we want him to do. But also, he'll get up there and he'll tell the Republicans, go fuck yourselves, we're doing this. He'll tell his own party off. And that's a good thing. Because a lot of times what screws a president up is his own party trying to pull his strings, and a lot of them let them do it. Or a lot of these presidents will let the party do it when he's supposed to be the leader of the party. So I like that about Trump in one way, but in another way I see what you're talking about. I agree with you. Another thing about, you was talking about the abortion thing. Yeah, I'm not going to get into whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Trump is a guy that wants to return a lot of the power back to the states. And if they overturn Roe v. Wade, that's what it will be. It will be, okay, this is not a federal government issue anymore. We're giving it back to the states and let the states decide for themselves whether they want abortion or not. At least I believe that's the way it's going to go. I don't think that they will, the Supreme Court ban abortion. I don't think that will happen. I may be wrong. But I think what it'll be is turned back over to the states. And I think that's, and I don't think, I may be wrong about this, but I think Donald Trump is not seeing it as a fight against abortion as in, well, I want a lot of the power to go back to the states, and abortion is one of those things that needs to happen. Now, yeah, he did, one of those things that needs to go back to the states. Now, yeah, he did speak, or Pence spoke at the pro-life march in Washington, and and Trump backed them up. But I don't see Trump making as big a deal out of it as maybe some people would like for him to, and that some people are afraid he will. I could be 100% wrong about this. We'll have to wait and see. But I really don't think that's what he's going to do.
Well, I wanted to touch on Obama real quick in comparison to Trump. And something I respect about Trump that I wish Obama had is some backbone. Obama seemed to be more concerned making sure everyone agreed with something. And, I remember, the Republicans kept trying to make changes to the Health Care Act, and I hated the Republicans for doing this, but I hated Obama even more because he was saying, okay, how can we find a compromise to this? And it's no, dude, you're the motherfucking president. Let's get Samuel L. Jackson being motherfuckers, we're going to do this shit now. That's what we needed from a leader, not someone who's trying to compromise to make sure everyone could be happy. I understand that it has to pass the Senate, but put them up against the wall and say, look, this is what needs to get done. This is what we have to do. And let's not have these tiny little squabbles. And if you want to, I will put it out there for the media, for YouTube to decide what the hell's going on. And that's what I feel like we're getting from Trump is an actual leader who's saying, look, this is what needs to get done. This is what's going to get done.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff there you brought up. There are a lot of good points. I'm actually a little bit on the other side of the fence from you on this. To me, I hate I hate the executive orders. I understand that they are necessary, that it is necessary for the president to have that power to sign an executive order. Because 9 times out of 10, these executive orders are just little piddly-anty shit that no one gives a damn about. I think someone said, George W. Bush signed an executive order that all of his memos were going to have 1.5 inches space on each side. I mean, who gives a shit about that? And I understand the need for them to be there, but I do not like that Obama used them so much, and I don't like that Trump is using them. Even though I agree with the things that he's doing, I don't like the fact that he's using them. Now, I think that the president should be up there to work with Congress and with Senate to get things done, that it should be a compromise. But at the same time, I also understand that there are times when you've got a Republican or Democrat Congress that are just saying no for the hell of saying no, and you got to do something about it. I understand we don't live in a perfect world, in other words. But, yeah,
well, a compromise should be the first option, but a common tactic that politicians do is that they'll say no to something just to get their way, to try to weasel things in there, to get what they need so they can get more money. And, you know, when shit like that happens, Barack Obama just kept going to, like, let's negotiate this further, let's negotiate this, and Trump doesn't seem to be that kind of person. It's like, you know, you said you're going to support this, and now you've changed your mind. Well, you know what, screw you. You know, if you're going to play these dirty games, I'm going to make sure you suffer for it.
Yeah, I agree. That's one thing you said. I think the president's like, okay, if you know, whichever party is Republican or Democrat, if y'all want to play these games, I'm going to put it out there for all of America to see, and you'll have to answer for it come midterms. I'm going to whoop you publicly like a redheaded stepchild, you know, for doing this crap. I agree with that. I think a president or even the members of this Congress and the Senate need to hold the other party and their own accountable and say, you know, look, you people are saying no just for the hell of saying no. We're going to let the American people know that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I agree with that. Now,
you mentioned executive orders, and I do want to point something out as far as that goes. I mean, yeah, Barack Obama did a lot of them, but he only did 276 in his 8 years. George W. Bush had 290. Bill Clinton had 308. So as many as Barack Obama had, it was still less than the previous two presidents. And in fact, the one who had the most was Franklin D. Roosevelt with 3,500.
I mean, all of them do it, and I don't like that they have that much power. Just I'm going to force this through whether Congress likes it or not. I do not agree with that at all. Even though so far it seems like I agree with most or all of the stuff that Trump has done so far. I still don't like the fact that he's using executive orders to do it.
Yeah, and I agree with
but
that.
There again,
being able to sidestep the entire process, that is bad. It's bad that any president has had to do that for anything. And if it's deeply shit like, you know, extra margins on a memo, I don't even know why you have to make an executive order for that. Just say, hey, secretary, start doing it this way. Don't make it a big legal thing.
I understand that, especially in times of war and dealing with the military. I mean, he is the commander-in-chief of the military. He needs to be able to command the military. You know, that's his job. That's what we put him up there to do. And, you know, as the civilian head of our military. And so, the executive orders when it comes to the military, absolutely. But being able to, like you said, sidestep the whole process, I don't like that. But I also understand that we don't live in a perfect world, and that sometimes it has to be done.
And it has to be done because of the bureaucracy of Congress. That even with a Congress that's the same party as the president, things don't get through as fast as they need to get done.
Right.
And I guess that's why an executive order exists, but I hate it. Like you're saying, you know, you hate it, but you understand that sometimes it's necessary to get done. But it seems now, you know, if you don't get your way, you can just sign an executive order to change it, and there's very little that can be done. And it's like, don't take away from the process. The process sucks, don't get me wrong, but it exists for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can be challenged. It can be challenged by, I forgot what the actual process is, but an executive order can be challenged and overturned by the Supreme Court. But it's very difficult to do it. It's kind of like impeaching a president. It can be done, but it's very hard to do it, you know. And I think that's put there for a reason as well. That we can't have Congress just willy-nilly impeaching the president or overturning his orders because they feel like it.
Well,
And so
I think presidents can also revoke executive orders because it's talking. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for it, and it states that George W. Bush in 2001 issued an executive order which restricted access to the papers of former presidents, and President Barack Obama revoked it in 2009.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess revoking it would be I'm signing this executive order doing away with this, I'm signing executive order A that does away with executive order B, from the previous administration. I guess that's how that would work. I really don't know. But yeah.
Congress can also overturn it as well, so.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ways around it, but again, with the bureaucracy and everything, I mean, it took 8 years from when George W. Bush put a restriction on former presidents' papers to when Barack Obama overturned it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I'm going to do this, and it's going to take anyone else a long time to overturn it.
Yeah. I can imagine. Well, I think our Trump did this. His first day in office, he could have gone there and signed a bunch of executive orders doing away with Obama's executive orders. He did some of them, I think, but our president could do that on the first day if that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just think that Trump is the first one that we've had that's had the balls enough to do it. Now, there is a problem coming up on the horizon that scares the hell out of me, honestly. There is a reasonable chance. I'm not talking about just a remote chance. There's a reasonable chance that in, say, anywhere from 4 to 8 years, maybe even 10 years from now, the Democratic Party will no longer exist. Or at least if it does, it will no longer have any power. It'll be on the same level as like the Greens, or the Libertarians, where they may have 2 or 3 people in Congress and that's it. And that only leaves one party, and that's the Republicans, and that scares the hell out of me.
Well, I often think, though, that the Republicans and the Democrats are actually one party. That when you really look at it, the only party that exists is the money party, because that's all they really seem to care about is making more money for themselves. And the government is not for the people. And I know that's conspiracy theory on my end, but I understand your point of view that eventually it may just be that there's only one actual political party, and that would scare me too. But I disagree with you of it ever actually happening. I don't think it would ever happen because our establishment government, which is really what's in control of everything, needs a two-party system in order to make it feel like people have a choice on who they elect. And the establishment would never allow the Democrats to disappear.
Well, but I was talking about in not so much in theory, but in function, in reality, in function, because if you look at the way things are going, if the liberals, what am I trying to say? The classical liberals are leaving the Democratic Party because of how far off the rails it is gone. They're leaving it. that just means that there's only going to be the radicals left, and so the Democratic Party is going to keep going farther and farther left out into the the way out there, just to where no one will vote for them. And so that only leaves people voting for Republicans, Greens, or Libertarians. Now, yeah, the one of those other parties could come up and take the place of the Democratic Party. That is probably what would happen, but it would take a while. It would take, probably 10, 20 years before there would be another major party to rival the Republican Party. And so, that leaves us a pretty good space of time there where, in functionality, we only have one major party. Let me try to...
I understand what you're saying. You're making perfect sense, at least to me, that because the irresponsibility of the left in their radical ways, only really thinking of themselves and not for the greater good of the country as a whole, is going to alienate the voting pool, and people are going to be drawn to voting Republican only. So we're going to have a series of Republican presidents and Republican Congress that they're going to be able to become corrupt and control everything before another party can get in there and balance everything out.
Yeah, I mean, they will be unchecked. Yeah. I mean, right now the Democrats still have filibuster power in the Senate because they still have enough they can do it. After the midterms, they may not even have that. And that would basically mean that we are run by one party. And the Democrats, they could just sit over there and cry and whine all they want to, but they will be absolutely powerless to do anything. Now, there's another point to this that people need to think about. The Democratic Party does not have a bench anymore. And what I mean by that is the normal political system in this country is that you go to work for your local Democrat or Republican Party, as a staffer, as someone who basically you're volunteering to run and go get coffee, or volunteering to stuff envelopes. You work your way up into a staff position at your local government, a city councilman, or maybe even the mayor or something like that. Then you run for office on the local level. Then you run on the state level as either your state legislature or a governor. And then you move up into the federal. You get tapped as, hey, why don't you run for House of Representatives or Senate by the party? And that's the way you move up into the federal. The problem is that since Obama has been in office, the 8 years he's been in office, the Democrats have lost over 1,000 seats in the state or in federal and state level. They have no one to tap and bring up. They're right now trying to figure out who's going to lead the party. And they're picking people that no one's ever heard of before because, they've got this, I don't know, 5 or 6 people. Did you see the video of the woman standing up there saying, I believe it's my job to shut up white people?
The elementary teacher?
No, this was, she's running for the head of the Democratic Party.
Oh, wow. No, I did not see that. I try to stay out of politics, honestly, and that's hard to do because it's constantly in your face. So if I can avoid it, I can. But
she's a white woman from Idaho, and she's some kind of big wheel in the Idaho Democratic Party. And she said, they're basically having the party's having I guess a sort of an election, an internal election to decide who's going to lead it. Who's going to be the next leader of the party. I don't mean political leader, I mean the leader of the actual party itself. And one of them is this woman from Idaho who stood up there and flat out said, it is my job to silence white people when they try to butt in and say, oh, well, I'm a Democrat, therefore I'm not bigoted or I'm not biased. Yes, you are, because you're white. and these are the people that are running for the head of the Democratic Party, and no one has ever heard of these people before, because it's not like it's Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or any of these people that that has been on the national stage. It's these low-level people that no one's ever heard of before, because that's all that's left. And when they go to try to find someone to tap to come up and run for Congress or run for Senate, there's not many of them there, because there's not many people on the state level. So it's like, think about it as if you want to use a sports metaphor, think about a college football team or basketball team that has all seniors and juniors but no sophomores and freshmen. None. So in 2 years, they won't have a sports team anymore. And if it keeps going the way it's going, the Democrats are going to lose the midterms, which means they lose filibuster of I guess, the Senate, and they're going to lose even more state legislatures and governors. And so it's like they're just, I don't want to say being exterminated. It's just they're losing to the point to where there's going to be no one left to run for anything.
And now that you've kind of explained it a little bit more, I think that is a concern. That is a legitimate concern. I don't know if it could actually, well, I have to give it some thought, but, it's like, my thought right now is that this is why Trump won, though. If the left, and I call this kind of like what Paul Feig did with Ghostbusters. If you tried to reach out to the people that were giving you criticisms and address their criticisms as being legitimate, then a lot of people might have voted for Hillary. But instead, you said to these people, you are racist, you are sexist, you live in your mother's basement, you have a neckbeard, you're just all lonely men, did everything they could to alienate them in hopes that they would shut up and not vote, and they did the exact opposite.
Well, and the reason for that is because it worked in the past. It worked for Obama. If you don't vote for me, you're a racist. That worked. But it doesn't work now.
Well,
and that is something else that has changed.
Well, see, I never voted, and maybe because I'm a enlightened person, but I didn't vote for Obama because I was afraid of being racist. I voted for Obama because I thought he could actually bring about change. I really believed in Obama. But maybe the second reason is I hated, what's her face? Oh, I can't even think of her name anymore. Basically, John McCain's vice president nominee.
From Alaska.
Yeah. I also hated John McCain. I thought both of them would be wrong for our country. But I mostly voted. And I felt like a lot of people did that they were like, they hated her so much that they decided to vote for Obama because John McCain was old. But maybe some people are afraid of that. But, there's a parable that I like that I think really demonstrates this. That the sun and the wind had a bet if they could make a man take off his coat. And the wind blew and blew and blew to try to get him to take off his coat, but the man just, cuddled tighter with the coat on. And then the sun came out and shined real bright. The man got hot and took off his coat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if I got that story right, but the point that I'm trying to make is, like, if you keep attacking people to try to get them to do what you want, they're not going to do what you want. They're going to do the exact opposite. And so many people voted for Trump because they got tired of the left telling them that they're a bigot, racist people. In fact, a lot of people who voted for Obama voted for Trump. And they're going to bury themselves. They're shooting themselves in the feet, and they're going to keep pushing people to the right. You know, you yourself have said that you're going to now register as an independent. I'm strongly considering that now. I'm registered as a Democrat. I'm on the left. I'm a leftist. You know, I'm actually more of a centrist now with my viewpoints, but I'm more left than I am conservative. And I'm strongly considering leaving the party and going libertarian. Or going center, or wherever the hell you go. Because I'm so embarrassed by what the left is doing right now.
Yeah, and see, me and you are not the only two people that are thinking this way. And there's if you look at what's happening on college campuses right now, you've got Milo coming in, and every time he goes somewhere, he sells out the show. And there's a lot of people that want to get in, that want to buy tickets, and can't. There's not, we're sorry, we're sold out. And you'll have protesters show up and protest, and every time they look like jackasses. So you're having, what you're having now is you're having people who are either conservative, right-wing, libertarian people standing up and saying, you know what, I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I'm not going to hide my political beliefs anymore. I'm not going to bow my head in shame anymore. I'm not going to nod my head and go along with this crap just for the sake of I don't want to be called a racist, a bigot, or homophobe, or Islamophobe, or whatever. I'm gonna stand up for what I believe in, and if y'all don't like it, y'all call me whatever you want. I don't care. And we're seeing what we're seeing is these young, younger than us, younger than me and you, these young college age students on the right and libertarians in the center are growing a backbone, and they're figuring out that when these protesters call them a racist, nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens to them. So the label racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe, it no longer has any power anymore. Yeah. And that's what Hillary Clinton ran on, is I'm a woman, I have a vagina, vote for me or you're a sexist. Vote for me or you're a racist, because I'm the one that's going to, I'm the one that's going to take care of black people. I'm the one that has black people's best interests at heart. If you don't vote for me, you're a racist, you hate black people. And everybody went, whatever, and voted however they wanted to.
And what we're seeing as a result of this is the left getting more violent.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, the left is becoming more violent, and that was always going to happen. That was always going to happen. If they were ever challenged in any meaningful way, that was always going to happen. And what we're seeing with the left becoming this violent is we're seeing that we're winning. We're actually winning because the left becoming more violent is the scoreboard saying we're winning. And the reason for them becoming more violent is because they actually do believe that we're Nazis. They actually do believe that we're KKK. And they believe that they are just and righteous in engaging in violence against us, because if they don't, we're going to put black people back on the farms picking cotton, or in concentration camps, gay people in concentration camps, and Jews, we're going to gas them just like Hitler. And they actually believe that, so they believe that, okay, we tried this peacefully. Now it's time to not be peaceful, because if we don't, they're going to do all these horrible things. We'll have another Holocaust. They actually believe that shit. And so that's the reason they feel justified in doing this. Now, in reality, what we're seeing is they lost the argument. The American people have said, no, we don't believe this bullshit. And so that was always going to equal violence on their part. So we're winning, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened before now. I'm surprised someone didn't walk into a Gamergate meetup and open fire. I'm surprised that someone didn't walk into one of the international conferences on men's issues. I'm surprised someone didn't walk in and open fire. I really am. I'm surprised this hasn't happened before now.
Gamergate meetup that had a bomb threat called And after that, Gamergate meetups did things in secret. In fact, when I did a Gamergate meetup in Arizona, I didn't tell anyone where it was going to be until I could confirm that they were an actual person. And I vetted so much. In fact, I turned people away because I wasn't 100% sure they were who they said they were. So, well, that's what ended up happening after what happened in D.C. with the bomb threat. So that's probably why there wasn't a shoot-up at a Gamergate event. But of course, with the men's conferences, I think part of that might also be that they just don't happen that often. I mean, the next one's happening in Australia. So, I mean, anything's possible in Australia these days, so it could still happen. I hope it doesn't. But Australia hasn't seemed to figure out that when you protest something, you're giving legitimacy to it.
Well, and what I'm afraid of is some unstable individual thinking, okay, here's my chance to do some good. Here's my chance to be a hero. I will be a martyr for for freedom. I'll be a martyr to the freedom of black people and gays and Jews and all this kind of stuff. And you suit up and go into a place and open fire. It's not that these people are, think that they're evil. They think they're doing a good thing. They think they're doing right.
Well, as I said, this has been escalating over time. And if UC Berkeley is any indication, they're getting a lot worse. 2016 has shown this escalation happening from Black Lives Matter being in the middle of the street to, a bunch of thugs attacking a disabled white person. I mean, if we look at the long... And I think someone has done this, and I forget who. It might have been That Guy T or something like that. That has shown this progression that's been happening over the last year. That has led to this. This didn't come out of the blue. We've been building up to this. And the idea that someone could go into a men's conference and do this, there's a very good chance that it could happen. Because we're building up to that, and we're not taking steps to deal with it. Which is why I agree with you from the beginning that we do need to address this issue now. Right now. Let's drop everything and deal with this issue, and we're not. I mean, hell, Barack Obama invited Black Lives Matter to the White House and gave them legitimacy. Instead of saying, your protest is encouraging people to destroy their own homes. You need to get on the media and say, you people need to stop doing this. You're ruining it, ruining our message. Except for the fact that Black Lives Matter wants this to happen. They're the ones behind all of this happening.
Well, Black Lives Matter and the social justice warrior left, leftist, your average everyday leftist is a useful idiot. The people pulling and I'm just going to go 10 full hat here, but like I said in one of my videos on my YouTube channel, there's no other logical explanation for this. There are people who are pulling the strings that know damn good and well what's going on and know damn good and well what they're doing, and they're just using like Black Lives Matter and the social justice warrior left as useful idiots. One of the things that, and this did not get much media coverage at all, not even from like Fox News, and Breitbart, I think, only brought it up one time. There was graffiti at the Berkeley protest. I saw pictures of it, at least. I wasn't there, so I didn't see it, but I saw pictures of it, of a hammer and sickle with the words, "Liberals get a bullet too." Or liberals will also get the bullet. And that is straight up communism. That's exactly what happened in Russia. That's exactly what happened in China. The liberals were used in China and in Russia. The liberals were used as useful idiots. Once the people who wanted the power got into power, they killed them all. They lined them up against the wall and shot them. Mao did it. Stalin did it. Hitler did it. And so what we're seeing now is there's nothing new under the sun. This has all happened before. You look at how Mao or China became communist, how Mao came to power in China. He used colleges and college students to get into power. And he did it just the same way what we're seeing now. And communists always use okay, here's the privileged group, you all are oppressed, all you oppressed people, go attack the privileged group. And the privileged group is always the people they want to remove from power. So, it's not just white people that are privileged or straight people, it's also the, capitalism. That's privilege and needs to be removed. And stuff like that. They want you to start voting in people based on their race and based on their gender instead of based on their qualifications and all of this. And there's nothing new under the sun. This has happened before. It's happened repeatedly before. And if you'll just read about it and study the history of it, you can see all of this for what it is and see what's coming next. And one of the things that will be coming up next is they will start to use children to spy on their parents. They will start to have the kids, hey, has your mom and daddy ever said anything racist or sexist? Oh, really? Okay. That's what's coming up next.
And after that, we're going to have people
because they all
here in the middle of the night. This happened for the 16th century French Revolution when they tried to take the monarchs out. And you could go to the establishment and say, hey, I heard my neighbor saying he still supports kings and queens. And it's like, oh, okay, the next day they're gone. And it's like, hey, that person was a competitor for my business. I make bread and he makes bread. Well, now I got rid of him and I get so much more money.
Yep.
I mean, this shit has
Salem witch trials were the same thing.
Down that road. That's why we need to be out there fighting. This is why we cannot get into squabbles over what fights to have. We need to be fighting all of it.
Right.
And you want to deal with Antifa, you need to go for Antifa. Me, I may not go for Antifa. I recognize they need to be dealt with. But you know what? I'm going to make sure that the right is doing the right things, and they're not going. That's my fight. Every one of us has our own fights, and we can't all be out there fighting the same fights. But if you come to me and say, hey, Antifa is really getting big and powerful right now, could you maybe say something about it? I'd be happy to. I'm happy to help support you.
And it's the same thing here. Hey, I would be the guy going, hey, look, man, Antifa's getting big in your area. Here's their website. You may want to keep an eye on. We cannot be bashing each other because, well, this person over here isn't fighting the fight that I think they need to fight. That we can't be doing that. And I understand holding the right accountable and saying, hey, Trump supporters, don't just blindly follow him the way the left followed Obama. That's not good. I understand that. And to a certain amount, you're going to have people do that anyway. But, I haven't seen it happen yet as far as him doing something egregiously wrong and everybody going, that's okay. I haven't seen it happen yet. At least in my opinion. Well, there's some people that would disagree with me, but
the year's young.
Yeah. And the next thing is, I want you to think about this. If they are this pissed off now, imagine what will happen in 2018 when they lose the midterms. When all of this that they have done has failed and is actually backfired. And that's what's going to happen. More than likely, I could be wrong, but I think what's going to happen is the more they double down, triple down, quadruple down on their extremism, on their idiocy, on their just far left lunacy, the more and more people are going to move right, just like what you said. And in 2018, they lose. The Democrats lose the midterms. What's going to happen to them? What are these people going to do then?
They're going to double, quadruple down.
and they're going to become even more and more violent. And it's they were holding up banners saying, "Resist, become ungovernable." Well, what the hell does that lead to? That leads to a police state. That leads to martial law. What the hell? And the thing about it is if Trump, if it gets to that point where it needs to happen, and Trump does it, there's going to be a lot of people saying, you know what, I don't like it, but he didn't have any other choice. And that's scary. And it may be true, but it's still scary.
Any Democrat out there that still supports your party, that you don't like Trump, and you're watching this now, well, not right now because this is pre-recorded, change your tactics. This hate-filled crap that you're doing is not working. It's working against you. I understand not liking Trump. I hate Trump. You're in similar company here. But if you keep going down this road, you're going to make it worse for everyone. Stop trying to use violence to get your way. It's not going to work. If anything, you're going to create a police state, and you might even create a civil war. And let me tell you something. If there's one thing that conservatives like and love, is guns. They've got plenty of them.
Damn right.
And if you try to fight with them, ordinary citizens might think that it's time to use their guns on you crazies. If you don't want that, and I don't want that. I don't want a fucking civil war. I want our government to work. I want capitalism to work. And if you do not want a police state, then you need to change your tactics. Or else the world that Jack is painting right now is going to come true. And I hope to God he's wrong. I mean, I respect him a lot, but I hope to God you are wrong. That's what's going to happen, because that is not going to be good for anyone.
I hope I'm wrong too, and I very well could be, because I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? We could be looking at a totally different landscape than what we are right now. So I could very well be wrong. You know, I'm not someone sitting here saying that I got a crystal ball and this is what is going to happen. I'm just saying that the way it looks to me right now, if things keep going the way they're going without anything changing, that this is what's probably going to happen. And honestly, you were saying change your tactics. I don't even think that's going to work. I think that the left's arguments are so ludicrous, nobody's going to buy them no matter how you package them. I think the left is going to have to change and go back to their roots of being liberal, classical liberals. And I think that's where they're going to have to go back to that and leave all of this social justice warrior or social justice or cultural Marxist, however you want to define it. Leave all of that stuff behind. Get rid of it and go back to being okay. Let's have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and all of this sort of stuff. I don't think this country's going to buy social justice anymore. I really don't, because they see it for what it is. They see it as, white people are privileged, black people are oppressed, so let's give black people special rights and take rights away from white people. Average American, black or white, sees that as racist, and they don't like it. They don't want it.
You know, I talked to the preschool teacher that was in Seattle screaming in a microphone, like, white people, you need to give us all your stuff. We have to work 40 hours, for our job, and we don't have anything. I'm like, you work 40 whole hours? Is that like per week or per month? I mean, white people have to do that. God knows I've had to do that. I've had to work overtime sometimes, working up to 50 to 60 hours a week. Black people don't have a monopoly on being disenfranchised in the United States. White people are suffering the same thing. This shouldn't be black versus white. This should be, if anything, let's go on class basis. The rich are doing well, the poor are doing miserably. Because there are no jobs for the poor. There's not even a middle class anymore. Either you have money or you don't. And that's the problem in our country. We need to focus on that. That's why I voted for Trump, on the promise that he could bring jobs back to our country. You know, we might even be able to raise the minimum wage if there were people here who could have jobs here. That if people started making enough money, that we could start raising everyone's wages or start lowering the cost of things. But it's going to take time for that to happen. It might take 10 years. It might take 20 years. But we need to get started now. We can't just raise minimum wage and get free college, because that has to come from somewhere. And pretty soon, a college education is going to be nothing. Actually, it already means nothing.
It does. I'm not going to get into whether the minimum wage is a good thing or not. But you said it. That money has to come from somewhere. And so, but you're right in that. If you go to Cracker Barrel, I don't know whether they still have these or not, but most places most, at least here in the South, and I've seen them up north in Detroit, different places, Cracker Barrel. You go in there in the store, and they've got books, little booklets that you pick up, and this is what it was like in 1950. This is what it was like in 1960. And you pick it up, and it'll tell you the price of a gallon of milk, the price of a cup of coffee, the price of a car, the price of a house. You go look at that, and it will also tell you the average wage people earned in those days. And you look at the average wage versus the price of a house for 1950, 1960, anywhere in there. And then look at it for today. And it's like, back in those days, a house costed double or 2.5 times what you made in a year. Now, it's like it costs you 3, 4, 5, 6 times what you make in a year, or the average income. I'm pulling the numbers, just guessing, because I can't remember exactly how much it is. But it's not that we're earning less dollars. We're actually earning more dollars, but those dollars do not have the same buying power that they once had. And so, that's something that's got to be fixed. Inflation has got to be fixed. And I believe if inflation was fixed and brought down to a reasonable level, or back down really low, that you would not need, in other words, raising the minimum wage is like just throwing gasoline on the fire, I think.
No, I agree with you on that. The foundation to build off of. All you're going to do is close businesses that can't afford the minimum wage, and other businesses to get automated workers, because they cannot afford the minumum wage.
Or jack the prices up to where, you're back where you started. And so it doesn't accomplish anything. It makes people feel good for a little while, but it doesn't accomplish anything. And it gets people votes, but it doesn't accomplish anything.
What we need is to expand the middle class. We need to make the middle class exist again.
And I think Donald, for a long time we've had the Republicans saying, trickle down economics. That doesn't work. We've had the Democrats saying, give everything to the poor and punish the rich and they'll move up. That doesn't work. Donald Trump actually has it right. Cut taxes for the rich, the middle class, and the poor. Or cut corporate taxes. I think he's either going to leave the rich individuals' taxes alone, or actually raise them a little bit. But he's cutting corporate taxes. So he's cutting taxes. He's going to cut taxes for everybody. First off, that's fair. The second thing is it's the best of both worlds. You cut corporate taxes, they create more jobs. They bring their factories back here rather than and carry them overseas where the taxes are lower. The second thing is when you cut taxes on the middle class, they buy more shit. That more shit needs to be made. You cut taxes on the poor, they can move up into the middle class where they can buy more shit. More shit needs to be made, more jobs. it's all around. It's all around good thing.
And also is tariffs. I mean, one of the reasons why a lot of companies move factories to Mexico is to import things from Mexico to the United States. There are no taxes there. But if Donald Trump, keeps his promise and puts a tariff on Mexico, well, you might as well keep the jobs here in the United States if you're going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, I drive a truck. That's what I'm doing right now. I go down to the border, Nogales, Arizona, El Paso, down, in the southern part of Texas, Laredo, McAllen, Brownsville, all of that down there. Right, and I haul produce out, which produce is going to have to be imported across the border because in the middle of the winter, you're not going to find tomatoes and fresh produce up here. It has to come from down south. But I go down there to like Laredo. You go down to that city, the trucks on the road outnumber the cars. There's more trucks than there are cars. And you don't see that anywhere else in the country except on the border down there. And it's constantly, stuff coming across the border. And again, it's not just produce, which we're going to have that, but it's dry goods. It's all this. The truck I'm driving was made in Mexico. So it just. We gotta find out a relationship with Mexico that's going to work. I'm a little bit worried about what Trump is doing there because, again, we have to have produce from Mexico during the wintertime. And what is Mexico going to do when we start laying all these tariffs on our, the dry goods, the stuff you buy that isn't foodstuffs? What are they going to do to the produce when we've got all these tariffs on that stuff coming across the border, but at the same time, it's got to be done. We got to do something.
Well,
so it's
what's going to happen is immediately there's going to be problems. There's no two ways about that. Anytime you commit some sort of change, there are going to be problems. Give it time; it will balance itself out. Because what's going to happen, and you're perfectly right, is that the prices will raise on produce coming from Mexico, and people won't be able to afford them. But for other things as well, they're going to move the jobs back to America. They're going to put centers back here in America. People are going to start getting jobs, and over time, they're going to start having money. And as you say, if there's one true thing about humans is that we like to buy shit that we don't need. We want to get those 4K TVs. I know I want a 4K TV. I can live without it, but I like my life better with a 4K TV in it. I couldn't afford one right now if I wanted, but you know what? I want the expensive crap that I don't need. Because you know what? That's going to create more jobs. That's going to create more demand. And we're going to have people building it. And people are going to get paid. And suddenly, that high amount of money for produce is going to actually be cheaper because I actually have the money to pay for it.
There you go. Or is Mexico will finally, get their panties out of a bunch and say, okay, all right, let's deal to where we can import your goods from the U.S. down here at a reasonable rate, and you can import our goods from down here up there at a reasonable rate. After everybody gets finished, blustering and pontificating and, we're going to do this to you if you do this to, it'll all calm down. And we'll get, in other words, we'll sit down and say, okay, we're done being pissed off at each other. Let's figure this out.
That can only work, A, if Trump actually does it, and B, Trump stays in office for 8 years, because I don't trust a Democrat coming in the middle of it. He's probably going to, he or she, is going to reverse everything and go back to the way things were, which it wasn't working. Right now, we need a person who's job-centric in office. And once we
Yes.
balance that out, I think a lot of problems will start going on the process of being solved.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I agree with you 100% on that. And I'll add this to it. If another Republican gets elected in 4 years, we'll be screwed too, because they'll go back to the way things were, where, just the same that the Democrats or Democrats will come in and just undo everything Trump did. The Republicans will come in, we're going to keep it up, and then not do it.
You know what?
They would just
maybe Trump is going to have like a conflict of interest in things and give things to his own company. I'm going to be there to argue against it. But you know what? All presidents have a conflict of interest. But he is the right man to bring jobs back. We really need this. There are a lot of problems that need to be resolved. Let's get this one here and now. I felt that way about healthcare, and I agreed with Obama that we needed to do something with healthcare. He messed it up, and the only way to fix the healthcare problem is to get people to have jobs again. The healthcare crisis that he created would actually be resolved if people had jobs, because then they would have money and they could afford the increased hikes of health insurance.
And it's not just that. They would have their own health insurance, through their company, and just like me, for example, I'm technically an independent contractor. Therefore, I don't have health insurance through the company I work for. I have to buy it myself. Well, guess what happened when Obamacare came around? And plus, I have my daughter on there. My wife, where she works, she does have her own health insurance. But if we put me and my daughter on there with her, it goes through the roof. I mean, she'll be working every week, and at the end of the week, be owing them money. So I got my own insurance plan for me and my daughter. Well, guess what happened when Obamacare came around? My premiums went up, my deductible went up, my coverage went down. My insurance is more crappy now than what it was, and I'm paying more for it.
But
it's
at
like,
the same time,
what the hell,
And I hate that my good fortune with Obamacare hurt you. I'll put that out there right now. But I became disabled in 2012. I lost my job, which meant I also lost my insurance through the company. And at Arizona during that time, I couldn't get on access. I couldn't get on Medicaid because it was only for old people or women who were pregnant or teenagers. I was none of those three things. And for a whole year, I went without insurance. And then Obamacare kicked in and forced the system to give me Medicaid. And so I'm grateful for that, although I haven't gotten the help that I needed because no Medicaid doctor will actually treat me. But at least I had insurance that if something happened, I was covered. So my good fortune,
a car accident or something.
My good fortune with Obamacare hurt you, and I hate that. But at the same time, without Obamacare, I'd still have no insurance.
Well, see, the state of Tennessee, where I live, had its own insurance plan for a while. It was called TennCare. And it was great. It was awesome. If you could not get insurance where you were employed, or if you were uninsurable, they would cover you. Well, guess what happened? People started going to the emergency room for a bee sting when they weren't allergic. They started going to the emergency room for a little cut on their finger because it was cheaper and quicker and easier to go to the emergency room than it was to go try to get an appointment with their doctor. And it bankrupted itself because of that crap. Because, it was people doing stupid shit like that. There's also a bunch of drug addicts and freeloaders on there just, going to the different doctors and different hospitals to get pain pills and stuff. And it was, people who could have gotten insurance didn't, instead got on TennCare. And it bankrupted itself. It was great while we had it, but it just couldn't last because people were irresponsible and people were just abusing the privilege.
That's actually the reason why I have difficulty of a doctor taking my condition seriously. Because when the economic crisis hit in 2008, a lot of people started to claim that they had a mental disability. And those are hard to prove because it's basically my word versus a doctor's. And at that time, it was a little bit easier to get on, Social Security if you had a mental disability. And now, it's like when I go to the doctor and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get on disability. Oh, we don't help with disability at all. It's like, well, if I don't get you to help me on disability, then a lawyer won't take my case to help me get on disability. And then I can't get on disability now because I'm actually disabled. But because so many other people abused the privilege because they couldn't deal with the fact that they couldn't pay for their houses, my heart goes out for them for that, but you ruined it for me, someone who actually needs help. And I have to fend for myself.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. I knew a guy back home who was he should have been on disability, but he wasn't. He worked every day up until he got so old he couldn't. But the man was hobbling around on a cane, ever since he was young. He fell or something and shattered his leg and messed up his spine, and he was in pain every day of his life. He should have been on disability, but he couldn't. He couldn't get on it. And so, I know what you're going through there. I've seen it happen, and it sucks. And it's all because of people who just who abuse the system. But back to what we were saying about the politics stuff and about the right and the left. The left right now, or let me rephrase that. The Democratic Party right now, their house is on fire, and they're running around in the front yard blaming everyone else but themselves for their meth lab blowing up. And that's the analogy that I use. The Republican Party, all those old farts up there who have been, your 1960s Republican, let's go back to the 1950s, 60s era, they're standing out in their front yard watching a bunch of frat boys take over their house and remodel it. So, what is the Republican Party right now? Nobody really knows for sure because it's changed so much and we don't know where it's headed. Donald Trump has changed everything. The conditions that brought Donald Trump into office changed everything. Milo, Gavin McInnes, Lauren Southern, all of these conservative or right-leaning people have brought this whole group of young people to the right, and they're taking over and doing things the way they want them done. And so we don't know what is going to happen there. We don't know what the Republican Party is going to look like in 2 years or 4 years or 8 years. The Democratic Party, again, I already explained what I think is going to happen over there, what it looks like at this point if things keep going the way they're going. But then, like what we were talking about, another party's going to come in and fill that space. Who is it going to be? The Greens are more radical than the Democrats. The Libertarians right now, they're having trouble with the social justice warriors trying to come in and I'm not going to say take them over, but try to sway them over to that way of thinking. Now I don't know how much.
I might have voted for Gary Johnson if it wasn't for his one interview where someone said illegals, and he's like, "No, it's undocumented workers." Well, they're still illegal. No. He freaked out over the term illegals. They are illegals, and yet. And it's just like, that scared me right there. It's like, this is the poster child for the I can't even speak right now. My mind's growing tired. But that's the poster child for
libertarians.
That was our best candidate to run for president? And it's like, no, I'm staying far away from that.
Right. And you've got liberals, classical liberals, that are looking for a place to go because they do not belong. They can't stand the Democrats anymore because the left has completely. I look at it like this: we have the right and we have the left and we have the center. The left is over here moving around and the Democratic Party is trying to keep up. The right is over here moving around and the Republican Party is trying to keep up. That's the way I look at it. The Republican Party is trying to catch the right, and the Democratic Party is trying to catch the left. Well, the Democratic Party is no longer a place that liberals, your classical liberals, can feel like they belong in all, because the left has gone so far out, way past into a totalitarian, authoritarian, anti-free speech, anti-free expression, all anti-right of assembly if you don't agree with them, all this stuff, and the liberals going, oh, hell no. This is not what I'm about at all. And so they're leaving, but where are they going to go? A lot of them have come over and kind of like, well, the right and the Republicans have got some good things going for them. They're more like what the Democrats used to be. In some ways, not all the way, but in some ways. And so they're looking at that. They're looking at the libertarians and going, well, what do we do? And I honestly think that right now would be the perfect time for the center to form another completely new party for its birth to happen right now. If we had some people like Dave Rubin and some others who are your classical liberals, if they were to stand up and say, you know what, we're going to form a new party. Now, it might take it 20, 30 years to become an actual force in our politics, but right now the ground is fertile for a birth of a new political party. And if that happens, the Democratic Party is dead. It's gone. If it doesn't, who knows? Maybe they can pull it back, but I kind of doubt it.
We form a new political party called New Liberals, and then after a few years where people they don't like it, we'll reintroduce Liberal Classic, and we'll make billions.
You
see the joke I'm making.
Like New Coke and Classic Coke. Yeah. I like the LGBT party. Liberty, guns, beer, and tits. But this is a really interesting time to be alive, because we have not seen anything like this in over a century. The last time anything like this happened was when the Whigs became the Democratic Party, and then the Democrat and Republican Party actually swapped with each other, and that started right after the Civil War. And that was the last time anything like this has happened. So we're living through a very unique time in American history. And if you remove yourself from the equation and just look at it, it's very interesting. But at the same time, you being in it, it's kind of scary, because we don't know where it's going. We don't know what's about to happen.
But at the same time, things get worse before they get better.
Yes, absolutely, and you're exactly right. We've got the violence coming from the